Ken Trahan with Lenny Van Gilder for SportsNola.com. The college football weekend by the boards. LSU still number one in the nation by virtue of a solid 35-7 win over Kentucky. The defense was stifling, suffocating. Kentucky doesn't score until the outcome is decided, and they do so late in the game. Tyrann Mathieu just continues to be amazing. And I know it's very, very unlikely, but considering the fact that the guy's basically either scoring or creating a touchdown every game, he's got to be at least talked about in the Heisman Trophy candidate race.
He's the only defensive player in the country who belongs in the conversation. He's a guy who's shown up in the top 20 before last week when he forced 2 more fumbles, turned one into a touchdown, and that was an amazing play on that strip sack of the Kentucky quarterback as he literally went in the air and got around to the other side to knock the ball out. The ball was roaming free there. He got his awareness, which he has an amazing awareness of the football for a defensive player, picked it up, ran it in for a touchdown. The guy is remarkable, and you're right. He should be in the Heisman conversation.
And their defense as a whole was simply superb. Offensively, they were efficient. Kentucky was determined to stop the run, jumped on it early. Spencer Ware had a bit of a problem, we think, a hamstring, and so they went with other people. One of the things that happened in this game was Terrence McGee got to play and played a lot. He's going to be very good, yet I'm a little bit surprised they took the shirt off of him.
Well, it's one of those things where if it is a situation where perhaps Ware is out for a game or two, then he becomes your third running back. You could put the load on Ford and on Blue, and maybe even stick Shepard back there at times. But again, with these guys, if you can afford to do it, you can. But if you do have injuries, you've got to be ready for that. Just ask Sean Payton about running back injuries and what happens there.
LSU did not throw the ball particularly effectively, and the numbers weren't that good for Jarrett Lee, but 2 things. Number 1, no turnovers again. Number 2, a lot of drops by this receiving core. You have to be pleased with Odell Beckham. He's all that, but they've got to be more consistent catching the football.
You're absolutely right. I believe there were 7 in the first half alone. And Beckham, what a terrific play on a touchdown run, cutting it back clear across the field and eluding defenders for a 51-yard touchdown. This guy's a true freshman. That's scary.
Yeah, he's the real deal. And otherwise, Jordan Jefferson, of course, the other story of the game, he got to play, and, of course, boos when he came into the game after Jarrett Lee had driven him down the field. And I really think those boos were largely directed at the move that was made to pull Lee after he'd taken them down the field, more so than they were directed at Jefferson, although I think some probably were.
I agree with that 100%. I think the situation, 4th and goal, at the 6-inch line or exactly where the ball was, but I think it was more at the situation and making a change there. It almost seemed, shall we say, Croton-esque at making a quarterback change in that situation. Making these personnel kind of changes instead of sticking with got you there, so to speak. But there was a lot of frustration about that after the game. Les Miles basically saying, "You come into the stadium if you're an LSU fan, how you would boo anybody who puts on the Tiger uniform is beyond me." And to a point, he has a point.
He does have a point, and I don't like the booing personally, but as I've always said and will continue to say, when people pay, they have a right to do whatever they want to do, providing it's within legal boundaries. So that's basically the way I feel. And the way I feel about Tulane is, not very good. I just don't, I don't understand. I don't really get it, how they can go out and get waxed 2 straight weeks by teams that are mediocre. Not bad, but mediocre. And, Lenny, you and I were talking, it's not just that Duke and Army beat Tulane. It's the fact that they beat them so badly, so resoundingly, and that has to really concern you.
Well, this is a team that has lost by 21 and 39 points the last 2 weeks. And that 21
wasn't that close.
Right, 21, it was a 35-point game in the fourth quarter until 2 garbage time touchdowns. And these are bottom-of-the-barrel teams in, the football bowl subdivision in Duke, who's one of the 2 worst teams probably in the ACC, and Army. I mean, now granted they've struggled with Army over the years, and the whole thing about it's tough to go against that scheme. You still shouldn't turn the ball over 4 times. You still shouldn't give up that kind of yardage and that kind of point total to a team like that you're clearly the superior athletic team.
Yeah, bad offensively, bad defensively, miss an extra point for crying out loud. So this is just an unacceptable performance for a team that looked like it was pretty good after the UAB win. Clearly, we've miscalculated, this defense thinking they were better, and this offense thinking they had made progress. Where do they go from here?
Well, the good news is they come home for 3 in a row. They've got a Syracuse team that is mediocre at best. They just lost to Rutgers. They should have lost to Toledo if not for a bad extra point call by Big East officials. They had to go overtime to beat Wake Forest the first week of the season. So clearly they are a mediocre football team. And then behind that you've got Memphis, who may be the worst team in all of Division 1A or the Football Bowl subdivision. And then UTEP, a team that Tulane has played very well against. So you got a chance all of a sudden here to maybe put something together, and you could go back on the road at 5-3. But the bad news is that you got 4 of the last 5 on the road
against teams that are better than Tulane. Clearly, when you look at the schedule, down there, Rice, the only one that certainly doesn't fit that category. Okay, big shout out to the Raging Cajuns of ULL. They're 4-1 and maybe staring at New Orleans down the road.
Well, it's something that the folks at the New Orleans Bowl, when they started this thing 10 years ago, had hopes. Okay, we're going to match up the Sun Belt, and after the first year, Conference USA. Well, certainly we're going to get the Raging Cajuns or the Green Wave, maybe even the folks up in Monroe. That would be good. They even tried to work a deal at the last minute last year to get Louisiana Tech. That didn't pan out. But at the end of the day, they haven't had a team from Louisiana play in this game in 10 years. Well, this may be their best shot. And, the job that Mark Hudspeth has done is to be commended. 4-1. They went to Miami 2 weeks ago and upset the best team in the Sun Belt, Florida International, beat Florida Atlantic at home Saturday night on the last play of the game.
And finally, big shout-out high school-wise. We talk about higher classification, high-profile teams all the time. Big shout-out to Archbishop Hannon and St. Martin's, both of whom are unbeaten. Midway point of the high school football season, and some very good things to come for Coaches Lambert and Cazzo, respectively. Lenny, as always, a pleasure.
As always.
For SportsNola.com, I'm Ken Trahan.